1, 2.
Testing. Testing. Everybody hear us okay?
Yes, we are here.
We're here. We're doing another live session for you folks. Thanks for being here. That's a great honor. Appreciate all of you being here. As people are starting to trickle in, we're starting to get going here. Please post in the comments, the chat box, whatever, that you can hear us okay. Make sure the video is working okay. Thanks for being here, guys. And today we're doing a fretboard We're doing a fretboard workshop series. That's kind of hard to say, actually. And we're going to post all these guys as soon as the video is over. It'll be on the YouTube channel for you. So if you're joining late or whatever, you'll be able to go back and watch it. We'll put it in a playlist for you. We've got a bunch of these videos. We're doing a whole series on the fretboard. All of this stuff, guys, is tied to Steve's Unlocking the Fretboard Connection course, which is available at guitarzoom.com. So if you'd like to check that out, it's available for you there. What are we going to be talking about today, sir?
All right, so we're going to be talking about a technique that I call pentatonic expansion. And basically what it is learning how to take the pentatonic and just very simply add some notes into it to convert that scale into other scales, or what we call modes.
Cool. Let's do it.
Okay. So basically, again, I need to switch my camera angle here. So basically, if we think about it, if I was to take the A minor pentatonic, which is what we've been focusing on here, and I was just to add in one note. Let's say we added in what we call the flatted 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to the A, and I'm going to play the pentatonic. But after I play 3 notes, I'm going to add my middle finger right here on the 6th fret. So I get 3 notes in a row. This is called chromatic. And when I do that, I create what's called a blues scale. Now what I like to do is I take that note. Now remember, I'm playing 3 notes from the root. So 1, 2, 3, and then boom, I add it in right away. So if I was to go to the A here on the 7th fret of the 4th string and play 1, 2, 3 notes and go to my pinky, these 2 notes are octaves of each other. So adding this blues note on that 3rd string is something that I would very much use on a regular basis. So if I was playing pentatonic, and right there it is, that 8th fret. So all you're doing is you're adding in one note, but you're adding it in 2 different octaves inside this position. So by adding that note in, we're turning the pentatonic scale into the blues scale. Now the blues note that we're adding in is a note that you usually want to try and kind of pass over. You don't really want to emphasize it. You know, you might slide up to it or slide down from it or hammer on. Something like that. But that's what you do to simply move your pentatonic into being a blues scale.
So cool.
Yeah.
So this is the blue. Are we adding? This is the blue note, which is the blue note or blues note.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Okay. And we're not worried about trying to figure out theoretically what the flatted 5th is and all that stuff. We're just like, hey, add this.
If you do know what it is, that's exactly what it is a flatted 5. If you don't, you think about it like the way I used to think about it was I had a power chord, and it was this. It was the note right below my power chord, right below. This is what we call the 5th in music, but again, even if you didn't know that, it's just sitting below that. And then I learned it as just like as I explained to you right now, I learned it as playing 3 notes of the pentatonic, and then it was the next note. So anywhere where I had an A, I could find it by thinking about it as that next adjacent note. Wherever I went.
Very cool, dude.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay?
Yes.
So the next one, what we're going to do is we're going to take the pentatonic, same idea, only this time we're going to add some melody to this, where the blues note isn't really a melodic note, it's more of a kind of an impact note. What we're going to do is we're going to take the pentatonic scale, and what I'm going to do is up on the top here, I'm playing A and then C. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add in the note B. And if you think about the pentatonic, the great thing about pentatonic is you really can't hit a wrong note, which is why we use pentatonic a lot, is when we have chordal transitions and things where maybe we don't know what key we're in, or maybe the chord has changed keys, or it's in a, it doesn't fit in the key or something like that. Pentatonic is wonderful for a lot of those reasons. The downside to pentatonic is you never have half steps to really create this functional melody. You just get these kind of lines that bop around. So in adding in this 7th fret of the 1st string, I'm creating a half step. And you get this melody. So a lot of times I'll play that note, either I'll just play it, or I'll bend it a half step to become the 8th fret. Because I've always really liked that sound. So, I used to do my traditional bends pentatonically, they were always whole step bends. All that kind of stuff. But with this 7, I can bend it up to become the 8th fret because that's one of the notes of my scale. And you can really hear that there's melody that exists there. Now this note, and again, in music we call this a 9th, but don't stress over that, but that's what it would be called, is a 2nd or a 9th. Because this is my A, which is my root or my 8th, my octave, so this is my 2nd or my 9th. But again, if you don't know that, don't really worry about that. But the octave of this is down here on the 4th fret of the 3rd string. So what I'll do is I'll combine those 2 octaves together. I might do something where I play this 4 to 5. You get these kind of classical kind of sounding melodies. And the 9th was really interesting to me because, again, when I started trying to study guitar players that I really liked, like, Vai and Satriani and things like that at the time, what I noticed was the 9th, which is what I'm talking about right now, this note, was a very kind of transparent and generic note. It added some really great color into the scale I was using, pentatonic, but it didn't overly define it. Like, it didn't make it sound exotic or anything like that. It was just a nice general note that I could add in that added some nice color to it. So that's what's nice about the 9th, is that for most situations, the 9th is going to fit in just fine if you want a little more melody.
That is super cool. So we talked about the blues note, or the blue note, some people call it.
Yep.
And then we talked about adding in the 9th.
Yes.
And that's a regular old 9th. It's not a flatted.
Nope, this is just the 9th. We could call it a major 9, but it's the 9th, right?
Got it.
We add in the flatted 9, we start changing things a little bit. It becomes a little more unusual. And what Dan's referring to is if I was to take that 7th fret right now, okay, remember, when we talk about the 9th, we're not talking about 9th fret, we're talking about a theoretical term. So if I was to take that note, instead play in the 6th fret, well, now all of a sudden you hear it becomes a little more. So that's a little bit. You see, that changes it a little bit. So that's not transparent. That's not a generic thing. That's a very specified kind of sound. So using the 9th as it is, from thinking of it as a whole step from the root, is a very easy way to use it in your standard rock, blues, pop soloing situation.
Very cool. This is really fascinating to me because we've talked about in this workshop series, we've done a lot of things. By the way, guys, you definitely want to make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Click on the notifications link because we're going to have all of these sessions there. Every time they come out, we're going to put them in a playlist for you. You can go to the channel, you can watch it, but if you want to catch us live, make sure you turn that notification on. We've talked about a lot of stuff, but we continue to build this thing, and it continues to just grow, which is super cool. So we've talked about the pentatonic scale. We've talked about now the blue note. We've talked about this 9th. In a previous session, we talked about combining the major and the minor pentatonic together to kind of layer it together, which is super, super cool. That's another session, guys. If you want to check that out. Where do we go from here? We got 2 new ideas, a blue note and the 9th.
Right, so we're going to add one more note into this. Okay? Now this one's not as transparent. Okay? It's not as generic, and we refer to this note, again, in a theoretical sense as the sixth. But don't stress over that term again. If you just think about me playing pentatonic, and again, I'm going to go back to these first two strings because it's always easier to kind of demonstrate here. So I've got 5/8, 5/8, and remember, we just added in this new note we call the ninth, right there. Well, underneath that note, right here on the 7th fret of the second string, we have what we refer to as the sixth. Now the 6 is a really cool sounding note, but it's going to give you more of a rock and roll, bluesy kind of sound. So if you want it to be more of a rock and roll, bluesy kind of thing, you're going to add it in. Again, right out, however you want to visualize this. Basically what I'm doing is thinking of it as a whole step from this note right here. So I'm visualizing 5/8, 5/8, and it's sitting right there on the 7th fret. And then, of course, the ninth is sitting right on top of it right here. So I get this symmetrical... And then if I add the blues note in, I actually get 3 strings that look like this. And that's where I come up with a lot of these kind of faster legato movements, is because they're all symmetrical to each other. But that sixth is a really nice sound again. You see? But you got to think that it's more of a rock and roll bluesy kind of thing. If I add in the flatted sixth, the minor sixth, which is here, okay? So it's only a half step from this note right here. This is going to give it a very dramatic minor sound. So if I want my solo to sound very minor, I add in this sixth. If I want it to be bluesier, I add in this sixth. Okay? So now if you listen to me play the scale with the major sixth, with the more bluesy sounding sixth, listen to this. And if I solo a little bit with that, again, give it some flavor. And I'm really trying to stay away from other notes because I want to add in other notes, but I'm forcing myself not to. So now if I do the same thing, but I add in that minor sixth, see, it's really dark, really minor. So you got to be careful. The sixth isn't like the ninth, where that first ninth I showed you is a nice, easy note to add into your scale, and it works in many, many situations. The sixth, very much like a conversation that we had before, you've got to sonically decide which one is going to work better for you. So my point to, like Satriani and those guys that I was making earlier, is what I did notice is there's often times where they won't play the sixth, they won't play the sixth at all. They'll just play the ninth in a lot of their passages, because it's very easy and very flowing, and it's very simple to put in to make these nice sounding lines like that. Where when I add in, that's a little more defining, whichever way I add it. And again, you know, I always go back to all these things I've read and heard, but I remember Satriani saying one time that oftentimes with the things that we're talking about right now, they'll have far more impact if you have a chord being played underneath there, because then you can really hear what these sound like. Right? So if I was to just let this A ring out, so you really get to hear a sense of what that ninth or that sixth, that minor sixth in this case. See how dark that is? But if I add the major sixth, you get often what is referred to as like the Santana sound. Santana was big into using that that major sixth, that other sixth.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Super cool.
yeah, and as I'm adding these in, again, if you know anything about your theory and that sort of thing, we're actually defining modes by adding in different ninths or different sixths where we're actually adding in different modes. But right now we're not talking about modes. So we're just talking about their application and whether or not they're fairly generic, right, or fairly specific in sound. So
I'm loving it.
yeah.
So we've talked about the pentatonic, adding in a blue note.
Yep.
We talked about adding in the ninth and now adding in the sixth.
Right.
So it's 3 variations of that pentatonic scale. Yeah?
That's right. And the ninth, you're either adding in the regular ninth, the major 9, okay, which is the generic kind of sound. And when I say generic, I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean it's more functional. Where if you add in the flatted 9, you start getting more exotic sounding. So you got to be careful with that. The sixth, again, has two very important functions. Neither one of them are generic or multifunctional. They both really have to have its place. If you're going to add the major 6, it's got to be more of a bluesy kind of. And if you add in which is a bit more generic or multifunctional, but that minor 6th you got to be careful with, because that's really. It's really pretty dark that way. So, but there's simple things that you can do, again, without thinking, well, I got to study modes for 5 years to figure this out. You can spend a little time exploring what they look like, what they sound like, and how they apply to various chords. Have a buddy play a chord or record yourself on a looper or something playing a chord or whatever it might be, and just explore these sounds.
That's so important to do, just to record or have some type of backing track or something you could just play for a long period of time and meander and explore.
Yeah. And what you'll notice what I was doing was I just added in the note A. I didn't add in an A major chord. I didn't add in an A minor chord. I just added in a generic sound of A, an A power chord, right? So now you can decide, well, do I want it to sound really exotic, or do I want it to sound right, or bluesy, right? Whatever. I can practice any of those things by just having that A.
Okay, now I want you to do the A major. Add in the major one too.
Sure. So, well, if I did major, it's going to change a little bit, because then if I'm going to play major, I've got to play the major third, right? Or is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, you know how we just did the one on the major and minor pentatonic?
Yeah, so everything, well, before I do that, if I understand what you mean, everything that I just did, I did over minor pentatonic, right? Now, over major pentatonic, what I have to do is change one of the notes. I have to change what we call the third. I have to change that to that major sound. You see? So now I'm changing that third. So now we're changing a different, that's a whole other level. So that's changing a different note, which is what we call the 7th. We can play the 7th as what we call a major 7th. So if you think about it, I'm playing do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. You might know it somewhere else. You know, somewhere else on the guitar. Maybe you know it here. Right? I'm just playing it here so I can play this A in the bass and you can hear it. So there's the major 7th, which gives you the usual major sound. If I add in what we call the minor 7th, or the flatted 7th, then I get more of a bluesy sound. See? Heck, I can change the 4th, and I get Lydian. But again, I think we're getting too far out there. But yeah, so you can change things over the minor and the major pentatonic. I guess the reason I was just focusing on the minor first is minor, again, tends to be usable in most kind of generic situations. You know, whether it's blues or rock or anything that has a bluesy influence like we talked about before. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool. Guys, I want to mention a few resources for you as Steve's playing. I'm sitting here thinking kind of where, depending on where you are in your guitar playing journey, this is the Fretboard workshop. Okay, if you're just joining us, it's sitting here for you on YouTube. We're going to have a whole playlist for you. You can go back and watch anytime. You want to turn on your subscribe and notify button there to get a notification that the next one's coming. We're doing several of these fretboard workshops. Depending on where you are, guys, Steve has an awesome course called Unlocking the Fretboard Connection. That's available for you at guitarzoom.com. That is basically the pentatonic and the diatonic scale and learning how all those scale patterns fit together like a puzzle. Now, if you want to go even further, Steve has a course called Guitar Solos Made Easy, where he goes into some of the stuff that we're talking about now, where you've got the diatonic and the flat or the sixth and the ninth and all of this kind of thing. If we want to go to even another level, he has a guitar soloing masterclass. So I think kind of those are the three most relatable courses right now at the top of my head that you might be interested in if you enjoy this kind of thing. Is Unlocking the Fretboard Connection, Guitar Solos Made Easy, and the Guitar Soloing Masterclass. All of that's available for you at guitarzoom.com. Steve, what else do you want to add to this, my friend?
That's it. I just, again, a few things to throw in there and explore and mess around with, but I would say remember to try and use like just an open A or open E or whatever to kind of explore these sounds. You know, if you do an open E, then of course you want to move everything up to E minor pentatonic. You want to explore those sounds over that, or major or whatever it is that you're doing, right? Whatever it is you might be exploring. But that's a really great way. Like sometimes when I'm sitting around, I'll pick a note and then I'll just explore. You know, I'll try different licks and different ideas and different notes. You know, just trying different sounds and stuff like that. So I'm not playing with a metronome or multiple chords or something. I'm just exploring the sounds of my guitar and the scale that I've chosen and a tonic sound, and just kind of seeing what I come up with, you know. And then maybe I'll go. You see, and just kind of practice back and forth going, oh, that sounds kind of interesting, using the same scale, or maybe you change. I mean, there's a million ways you can do this, but that's something I love to do.
And you can do that for hours.
Oh, God, I love it. You know, my regimen when I was younger was always technique. Like I spent 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours a day practicing technique. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad that I did, because I learned a lot from it. And I have certain elements of technique as a result of that. But I never really did stuff like this, and this is something that I wished I had done more of when I was younger, because I just love it. I just love sitting around. I love melody, and I've always loved melody, but for some reason in my head, guitar wasn't melody. Guitar was attacking and fast and all this, and the singer was melody. And somewhere along the line, I realized, no, guitar could be melody too, you know, and you can learn to do all of those things at the same time. So,
yes, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for being here. Steve and I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe and hit the old notify button to get notification of the next session coming up. We're going to do some more fretboard workshops for you. If you're interested in this stuff, you might want to check out Steve's Unlocking the Fretboard Connection or Guitar Solos Made Easy or the Guitar Soloing Masterclass, all available for you at guitarzoom.com. Steve, anything else, my friend?
No, I'm good.
All right. Thanks, bud. Hey, I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate all of you. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody.
See you next time. Bye.